That's absolutely true. So where I was going with the functional capillary density is these little roads, these small vessels, and that's where our studies have shown that we can increase even higher. But let's say the 66% increase in microcirculation, and that comes from the smallest vessels, okay, which are the capillaries, and nobody else can do that. It's not systemically anyway. You can do that externally for a couple seconds, but you can't. Okay, so it's a very powerful device. The research that we're doing on this, first of all, our major published study is on fibromyalgia, and it's peer reviewed and it's published online. Um, and that was done at the University of California, San Diego, which is a renowned research institution. And it was also done in conjunction with the Department of Veterans Affairs. They were co-sponsored, and we did it at a VA hospital. And what we're able to show there is by increasing the microcirculation, we were able to reduce the widespread pain by 40.5% in 28 days for anybody with fibromyalgia. Now, there's plenty of testimonials out there. I just heard a couple the other day. I can't listen to them anymore. I mean, I like to listen to them, but I know the pain that these people went through before having the Avacen, and they hardly finish their testimonials because they remember how their life used to be. And when they start going back to that period in time where they weren't able to leave the house, they weren't able to go out and look at the sunsets, they weren't able to enjoy things that they had in their life, and now they can. And when they remember that, they just break down emotionally. But that's our key study. And put that in perspective with pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals reduce the widespread pain over 13 weeks. Those are all the studies, about 2%. So, we're 20 times more effective than that, and we have none of the side effects that these pharmaceuticals have. We're just finishing a manuscript this week on our research on ASD, autism spectrum disorder in kids, and that's a 2.5 year study, very intensive. And again, one of the things that we do with autistic kids is that we're showing in a study is that we reduce the anxiety, and we reduce the anxiety because the mechanism of action of the device is such that it ends up warming the blood, dilating the capillaries, and reducing the stress on the heart, which is just such a relaxing phenomena. And it's almost, for a lot of people, it's almost an addiction to use our device because they feel so good. My own father, who started using it when he was 90 years old, was confined to memory care, and he used it like 4, 5, 6 times a day just because it made him feel good. And it gave him a lot of benefits too, which I really are off label, and I can't talk about that right now. But the other study that we're doing is finished actually, and that's at San Diego State University, and it's on the effect of the Avacen machine with type 2 diabetics. And I don't know if you've had any type 2 diabetics use the machine, but you've probably seen some amazing results. And now we know why. I mean, we have it pinpointed, we have the proof of it scientifically, and it's going to come out in a major journal. And the world is going to be turned upside down. Because as you know, for a long time, people have thought that diabetes actually also contributed heavily to cardiovascular issues. So not only do you have problems with and diabetes is a microcirculation disease. Type 2 diabetes is a microcirculation disease. So I can't wait to share that information with you. It's probably going to be 3 weeks, but 3 months. I'm sorry, I wish it was 3 weeks. So those are the studies that we're working on now. We have one more, as soon as those manuscripts are done, I've seen one of the manuscripts, and it's really impressive. And then we'll be going into, we've got one way or the other. We've got two studies that we've selected. One, of course, is migraines, because I invented the device for my sister-in-law with migraines. And then the other one is wound healing. And we don't know which one we're going to do next. But that's the problem, is it's hard to focus on which studies to do. And it's because when you have something that's systemic, there's so many things that are caused by poor microcirculation.
Let's
And
talk about, Tom, if it's okay. Can you talk about, if you don't mind? I'm gonna ask you to talk about something. Then I want to make a statement. I'd like you to talk about anxiety. I'd like you to talk about the stress that people are going through, and what people are. I mean, I could tell them, but I want it to come from you. And the other
right.
thing, I want everybody to understand something here, is what you're hearing from Tom about his device, the Avacen, and I'll show you the Avacen right now. You put your hand in it, it's just like this. That's all you got to do. So anybody can do it, and I'll tell you something right now. Don't be surprised if you fall asleep all the time. And with people that are always in a sympathetic state, it actually teaches you how to get into a parasympathetic state and really know what peace and calm is for the first time in your life. But I will tell you this. We have what's called the perfect day, everyone, and you can email me at quickstart@dockofdetox.com and follow the 7 empowering steps. But when we use the Avacen and we start teaching people about their emotions, and we teach them about the perfect day on a nutritional, emotional level, and just doing different types of strategies and techniques throughout the day. Tom, I'm telling you right now that with the Avacen, it creates the power for everything else to happen. You know what I mean? It was like that push that everybody needed, the glue to bring it all together. Anyways, if you could talk about anxiety and people that are can't get out of a fear state, can't get out of that sympathetic state, what you've seen.
That when you talk about it, getting ill or getting a disease or getting anything else, how many times have you heard that stress is a killer? Okay, and so it is. It definitely is. And so because one of the important things that the Avacen does, it warms your blood, makes it more viscous, reduces the viscosity, makes it thinner. And so we have now warmer, thinner blood. And you can just think about that going through your muscles, and you can get relaxed just focusing on that without even using the Avacen. But we do that. And so the other thing that we do is because the main function of Avacen is to elicit capillary function. And we do that by putting excess heat into the body below 1 degree centigrade. And that excess heat does a couple of things. One of them, it engages the hypothalamus, who regulates the core body temperature, to start dilating the peripheral capillaries around the skin. So think of a garden hose. And so all of a sudden the spigot of the garden hose goes down and the tension in the hose becomes less and less and less. Well, that's what happens when you dilate the capillaries and you open all these gateways. And the reason that those gateways are opening up, because your body temperature your blood, because we warmed it, is warmer than the hypothalamus wants. And so what it has to do is dilate the capillaries to get the blood to the surface of the skin. Can you hear me? I have no signal for some reason.
We're good. We're good.
Okay, so I'm not going to be able to see you, but there we are. We're back. Okay, so and when all that goes down, the mean arterial pressure just drops, and so there's a soothing aspect to relaxation, and so and that goes right along with stress. So if you're stressed, you put your hand in the machine, and after about 7 minutes, you're going to feel very relaxed. After 15 or more minutes, about 30% of people just fall asleep, no matter what time of day it is. And that's almost an oxymoron, because you're saying that we're relaxing, but you're getting more energy. So it's a phenomenon that I still don't understand, but it happens all the time.
But you know what? People that are calmer have a lot more energy than people that are not. They have people who have anxiety. They have not energy. They are just anxious and burning out their nervous system.
That's a good point.
So that's why. I mean, you know what? Calm people have energy. That's it. You know what I mean? So you can take a look at people that are really fearful and anxious right now with this whole COVID-19 thing going on. They don't have energy. They're just burning out their battery, and their visa is going to be cut pretty soon, because they're going to drain their organs of all their energy. What I wanted to say is what about people because so many people are on blood thinners. So if I was on blood thinners, could I still use the Avacen?
Yeah, so we've done over 7 million, maybe 8 million treatments that I haven't calculated in a while. But over 7 million treatments, we have hundreds of people that I suspect are on blood thinners. There's probably over 100 that I know that are on blood thinners, including my brother-in-law who's an MD. And the fact is that we reduce the viscosity. It's only 10%. It's between 7 and 14%. And but it comes back. I wish it wouldn't. Then we could replace Lipitor, but it doesn't. And so within about 2 hours after after using our device, your blood will come back to its normal viscosity. And so it's a short-term thing, but there's so many other positive things going on in the body that your heart rate is going down, or your arterial pressure is going down. So it really doesn't affect it. We have had no reported problems with people with blood thinners, and that's we get asked that question all the time.
So let's talk about COVID-19. So just specifically, how does the Avacen help the body to deal with any type of invaders like viral, bacterial, things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, there's two things that actually, well, one of the things is that you want the immune system at peak level to avoid any pathogens coming into the body and taking over. So if you can keep your immune system on the ready and as high as you can, then in fact it's going to be hard for the virus or any virus for that fact. I have so many people that have had colds and flus for 30 years. That's their whole life. They get prepared for winter, and they know they're going to get a cold. They know they're going to get a flu. They don't. Last week, because we were doing a regulatory submission, I asked a couple of thousand users of the Avacen to submit anything that had to do with their experience with respiratory issues and with immune system issues, and also if any of them had contacted COVID or had any experience with COVID-19. In one day, I got 32 responses, long responses, and for people to take time to do that is exceptional. But not one of them had they had exposure, but none of them had got infected or with coronavirus or COVID-19. The other thing that I found was interesting that none of them, they all said they don't get the flu anymore. They don't get, and that means that we're keeping their immune system at its peak. So that's number one, how the Avacen helps. And whenever you're putting heat in the body, the immune system really kicks into action as soon as it feels heat. It thinks that you've got a low-grade fever, and all of a sudden all the white blood cells get sent out to find out where this fever is coming from, where this inflammation is coming from. And so we are increasing, and we've seen it over and over again. Somebody used the Avacen. We looked at their blood count before, and then we look at their blood count after, and the white cell counts got up. That's a good thing when you're fighting a virus. So that's number one. We help, or we increase the immune system so we don't have to have it. Secondly, with COVID-19, one of the killers is respiratory function. People will not be able to breathe, and then they end up dying. That's probably number one effect of COVID-19 as you go into the mortality statistics. We have seen, because we don't create oxygen. We're not a HBOT system or hyperbaric oxygen treatment system, but we do, because the blood is thinner and there's no resistance because we open the capillaries. It transitions through the red blood cells, and the blood transitions through the pulmonary effect, picks up more oxygen and delivers it. So think of a racetrack, and you've got cars going around an oval, and how many times you go by the finish line and pick up some oxygen. Well, that's what we do, and we just do it faster. So we're delivering oxygen faster. And so many people with respiratory diseases that sent in their testimony for us to submit to this regulatory body. So they don't have the coughs anymore. They don't have the asthmas anymore. If they just don't, because, and a lot of COPD people also wrote in and just said how amazing it was that they can go through life now being able to breathe. So the other thing that we do is we increase the oxygen flow, as I said, to the lungs, which is actually helps in recovery if somebody does get that far. And those are the two things that we're very effective at.
Oh, you mean get that far, meaning get COVID-19. If they actually get it, then the Avacen is going to give them that extra shot, that extra boost of microcirculation. And we know that the virus has a hard time with increased oxygen, right?
Yeah, and that happens. Yeah, exactly. And also heat. But and these are people that aren't on the Avacen. So if you're on the Avacen, you probably won't get it because we increase your immune system over a period of time. And if you have it, it would be a good time to uh, get the Avacen so we can continue to overcome the respiratory function that the virus causes. At the same time, jack up the immune system to try to fight it faster so there's a faster recovery.
And
And we've
just,
heard that though.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And just so everybody knows, during this period, if you call the clinic, we'll actually take $500 off the unit because once you start using this unit and you really see how it puts you into a parasympathetic state, which means calm, okay, and you actually see that pain starts leaving your body and your body actually just lets go and relaxes, okay, and you'll feel so at peace with yourself, and that's the only time you're really truly going to heal from anything. Tom, how is it with pain?
Well, initially that's the market that we went into. We went into the market, and that's what I developed the device for my sister-in-law who had over 20 years of chronic migraines, and that's over 15 migraines a month. And I developed it to help her with that, and that was our first real success. And then we found people with migraines also had fibromyalgia, and that's why we did the fibromyalgia study. So one of the most painful, I mean, fibromyalgia is very painful because it's systemic in its pain. And then on top of that, there's all types of other autoimmune diseases that have a pain aspect to them. And we do very well. We do exceptionally well with pain. Now, the interesting part is some people get immediate relief because that would be the next question you're probably going to ask. How long does it take? At
Yeah.
least I would,
Yep.
if I were going to make a big investment. So anywhere from immediate relief to, I had a testimony from a woman yesterday that for 2 years she had so much pain she couldn't function, she couldn't go out of her house because that caused anxiety with her. And after using the device, but she had to use it 6 months, but she kept with it because she believed in it. She felt it was doing something in her body even though she didn't have an immediate response on it. And she was just in tears yesterday because she doesn't have any more pain. She doesn't have any more anxiety. She goes outside and lives a normal life. And so it takes anywhere from immediate, everybody's different. Everybody has got a different body, and I'm sure you've experienced that too. But people need to keep with it. Don't expect if something took your body to be damaged over 30 years to go away in 30 minutes or 30 days even.
Yeah, and the thing is that people can use it once, twice a day, but people in a chronic situation, we're telling them to do it 4 times a day. I mean, how much energy does it take to lay on the bed or just relax, put your hand in, and then have all this beautiful vibration and the heat? And that's all you got to do. You just got to sit back and allow this thing to do its magic, right, Tom?
Yeah, how many minutes do you tell them to do?
30.
Good, good. Yeah,
30 minutes.
that's an excellent protocol. I mean, our protocol, I mean, it's a very powerful machine. So our clinically proven protocol is 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night, but you can't overuse it. I mean, that's the great thing is, and we do that because we want people to use it and make it as convenient as possible. And we know once they get into the 15 minutes twice a day, then they're going to go do 30 minutes twice a day. And then as much as they have time, then they should continue to do it. I mean, if I had the time, I would do it probably 5 times a day at 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Well, you know what? That's the thing. I mean, it just makes you feel so good. I mean, I could even see it, oh, I got to pull out the equipment and I got to do this.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but nothing, and everybody, this is not some kind of a selling program on air. We're actually telling you that it puts you into the most peaceful place and it makes you feel totally loved. And that's the beauty about it. But Tom, do you mind if I give 2 testimonials from this week?
No, no, please, please.
All right. So the first one is we've got we get a lot of breast cancer patients that come here, and I mean we get a lot. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 of them that fly in from different parts of the country. But I'll tell you one that we were working with just last week. And anyway, so her arm's swelling because she had an operation. Okay, and when they when they took the tumor out of her breast, it created scar tissue, and they also took a couple of lymph nodes out as well. So now she has this swelling and she has this pressure all the time in here, Tom. So when we first put her hand in the Avacen, she took her hand out within probably 2 minutes and said, oh my God, there's too much pressure here in my armpit. And I'm going, that's a beautiful thing. So understand something. I said, the Avacen's not going to hurt you. So what I want you to do, okay, and she was staying in the condo. We have condos here where people come and they have all this energy medicine. And I said, I want you to do this. I want you every half hour to put your hand in there. Now, Tom, you're not going to believe this, but guess what? It was only 12 hours and the swelling came down in her arm and she could actually feel every time she did it, it was like she was pushing something or something was letting go. And she said it almost felt like a pop under her arm, and right away her arm just drained. So, you know what? That's just one example of people that come here. So the reality is now, so you knew she bought one right away. Another case I'm going to tell you that happened last week was, so I have this lady come in and she has a large tumor, okay, in her lower abdomen, and it's sitting on top of her pubic bone. Okay. So what do you think that's doing to her bowel movements? So she's having a bowel movement. Are you loving this? Every 7 to 10 days. And nobody's told her that if she doesn't get her bowels moving, that it's just feeding that tumor. Well, of course it is, because she's got a manure pile down there and she's reabsorbing it. And it's just creating a highly toxic situation. So anyways, I had her put her hand in it and she did a half an hour, Tom. And she called me the next day. And guess what? She said, this is the first time I had 3 bowel movements today, and each of them were like anywhere from 7 to 10 inches long. So, wow. I mean, there's proof. That's proof pudding in just the last few days. So everybody understands something. I only use 3 different energy medicine equipment in my clinic that I use a lot. And this one here is a pillar, because if you don't, I mean, Dr. Otto Warburg said that if your cells go without oxygen approximately 35% for an extended period, they will not die, but they must morph. They must mutate because they don't want to die. And if there's no oxygen there, then they've got to live off of sugar. So the reality is, if you can increase the oxygen, if you can create a cancer cell, but if you bring back the oxygen it was missing, wouldn't that state that if you could create one, you could uncreate one? Tom.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we find that a lot in people that use our device for pain or use it for pain associated with chemotherapy. But, you know, one of the functions that we didn't expect is it makes them regular. So constipation is an issue with chemotherapy. And so you really, really need to be regular to get those toxins out of your body in mass. And that's another thing that listening to you in that situation is something people should know about.
Well, you know what people say? They say, look at Dr. Wolf, I want to do your protocol, but understand, I really feel that if I don't do this chemo, I won't live. I say, do the chemo. But the reality is, okay, we need to get your circulation up as high as possible, because the chemo is going to do whatever it's going to do. And the
Right.
Avacen is not going to do anything to the chemo except help to get rid of the residue that's left that really kicks everybody's butt down the street later.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Right.
and for unblocking things, we're really getting into now is into brain resuscitation for people, and every year there's about 300,000 people that drown. There are about 5 times that many and it's called non-fatal drowning, and part of that is in drowning you have a lack of oxygen that gets to the brain. And we've got 3 cases so far we've been really exceptionally blessed with, because they're children. Because most of the people that survive drowning are children. Okay, because adults, they just go out and drown. I mean, there's nobody watching over them. But children, what happens is they just get out of their parents' eyes for a minute or two, and then they're in the process of drowning. And so the parents say, "Now, where's Johnny or Susie?" Say, "Oh my gosh!" And they can get the EMS people over. But the long-term effect is that um, they actually go into a coma. Most of them do, and they stay that way. It's very sad.
So, in talking about that direction, so let's talk about what's the opinion of the medical community with the Avacen.
Yeah, that's it's changing a little bit. When I first started out, we used to go to medical conventions because we figured that's where we find the people that will be most interested in our device. And it was difficult because they thought we were treating the hand, and they said they don't need a hand machine. Um, but when you sit down and explain to them what it's really doing, and you do it in medical terms, they get interested, but it's only for a short period of time. So that's why we're doing more studies. That's why we're getting more things published, because it's a hard group to convince that there's something other than pharmaceuticals that they can look up in their little book and prescribe, because they're not that trained on microcirculation and the benefits of it, which is really surprising.
Well,
Vascular surgeons are, but
yeah, I know, but I don't know. Is it really surprising? I mean, and please don't get me wrong, but I don't think that the medical industry is actually in the health industry. They're in a different industry. So can I ask you a question? So what has changed? Okay, first of all, what kind of maintenance does the device need? And what has changed as people have used it? Have you made changes to the device over time?
yeah, yeah. I have to laugh because the first one that I built looked like a fish bowl that you put your hand in, and then you used actually it was an oil filter rain uh, uh, device that you would use to ratchet. It's called a ratchet that you would put around the seal, and you would seal it with that. And then we had a source of hot water, or a thermos that you had to put hot water in, make sure it wasn't over 160 degrees. And then we had a pump system that, I mean, that's what the first one looked like. And we stayed with that for a while. And nowadays it's a very rope. You couldn't drop it, because if you dropped it, it was gone. And so one of my first actual commercial customers gave me $300,000 to actually make it more useful. He loved it. He used it in his clinic, but the fact was he had to actually send his staff to take the thermos, go down to the break room, and put hot water in there from the water dispenser, bring it back down to the room, and I mean, it was really cumbersome. So that's where we were. Today, where we are after about $6 million of investment, uh, we have a device that's very robust. I've had people, and I myself, because I handle them a lot, have dropped it, and it doesn't break. It goes over and over. I had a lady at our house yesterday who went through all of this with us, and she got one of the first ones about 5 years ago, of the newer model, not all the newer firmware, but she just says it's like what is it, the Ever Ready Bunny or something like that. I just keep working on, and most people keep them in their house, right wherever they have their where they watch TV. They put it next to their chair, and so it's easy to pick up. They can use it whenever they want. Uh, we're starting now to change the protocol from before bed to immediately after your meal time, as soon as you can at night, for helping people with weight loss, and we're monitoring that. But most people keep it there. They watch the news at night, and it's very easy to use. Pretty soon, if they have the wherewithal, they'll buy another one just because they don't want to share it with their spouse. So it's a it's very functional, very robust, and it's close to perfect. It's close to perfect.
I'd like to talk about something else. I'd like to talk about, the opioid crisis that's on. I want to find out from you, how are you finding that Avacen will work with that, with people who are trying to come off, or helping to negate the symptoms, the negative symptoms that they're going through?
Yeah, that's really good. As a matter of fact, I was at a major university last week just discussing that, because like I say, one of the two studies that we may do next, one is wound healing. And the thing about our device in wound healing and this includes after surgeries for knee operations and hip operations, cosmetic surgery, is that people get by the first day with just over-the-counter Tylenol. And then after that, they don't even, if they continue to use the device on the protocol you mentioned, well, we actually have them do it every other hour for a half hour. They don't even need any medication. They heal very quickly. But the opioid, there's two situations that are involved with the opioid crisis. The gateway, one is marijuana, and I've got a lot of experience, and I understand that as a gateway drug to opioids. But the other one, and this is the saddest one actually, is surgery. Because after surgery, we have one where the fellow had some melanoma cut out of his face, and right after surgery, he said, "I'm gonna use the Avacen." He said, "Well, you better take this prescription." So they gave him 10 opioids. He didn't need it, and then people get hooked on it, and that's the biggest way that people do get hooked on it. So if they use our device for after surgery, after any traumatic treatments, instead of getting opioids, just use the Avacen.
Yeah, I had a young gentleman, and he flew here with his family, and the reason why they came is that he was actually having nervous system problems and talking about suicide, and they didn't realize that he was actually snorting opioids. Okay, until he got here, I finally got it out of him, and right away we went on the perfect day. We got him on the perfect day diet because he really didn't want to be there. But see, he got in an accident, and as soon as he came out of the hospital, they just handed it to him. So.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was at the point where he couldn't get them anymore, and he was stealing them from his relatives, right? And then because he couldn't get many, he was grinding it down. He was snorting it. So, he's getting a bleeding nose and hiding that from his parents. And his parents thought it was, didn't understand why he was getting a bleeding nose. Do you understand? So anyways, that is all turned around. We got him on the perfect day diet. Got him to start moving his bowels. His bowels were jammed way up. But guess what? Got him on the Avacen right away. And I had him using the Avacen 8 times a day. 8 times a day.
Right.
Okay?
Wow.
Because it was creating enough pleasure. Okay? So it was keeping... Okay, first of all, he couldn't get himself out of anxiety, so he was always in fight flight. Right. And even when he was sitting there, you'd see his foot wiggling just a teeny bit, right? So, you don't even understand, but when you get that anxious bug, you're even sitting there relaxed, or you're trying to get to bed at night and you're exhausted, but you're just running a program of anxiety. But guess what? By having him I told him I want him to do it every hour, right? At least 15 minutes to a half an hour. I said, if you do this, there's a good chance, because you're going to be getting pleasured so much that you're not going to want to get yourself out of your body because you're in pain, emotionally or Physically. And guess what? Never went back. Never went back.
Wow.
So that's a really good story. I have a couple more like that, especially with younger kids and opioids. But anyways, go ahead, Tom.
No, so there's two things. It prevents them from getting hooked on, and the point you just brought up is very important. Anxiety is a driver for people that are already on them, and so the calming effect is just amazing.
Well, it's all about joy, right? Everything's about joy. We do everything for joy. We have a bowel movement because we want to be happier. So the reality is, if you can bring up the happy molecules within the body, then we're not going to be searching for an escape to go someplace else, because that's why we go there. We either go to alcohol, we go to drugs. And yeah, I got to say the same thing as you, Tom. Making marijuana just so easy to get, especially in Canada here, it's a huge mistake. It just gave everybody the A-OK to just go and get stoned all the time. The people that I knew that toke before, now they toke a lot more.
Sure,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you just mentioned, we have a researcher on the East Coast, very, very well-known person, and he's been doing some research on and proving that the Avacen is one of the only known ways to actually increase oxytocin. And we've seen oxytocin in some of the children that we work with, especially the children with ASD. So I don't know how much you know about oxytocin, but I mean that's the happy place for a lot of people. That's what your body normally generates. Uh, well, actually, when right after birth, one of the things that creates the most oxytocin for a new mother is having the baby suckle with her. The other thing is that um, you pet your dog, you're going to create oxytocin in the body. You know, anytime you have a warm feeling where you interact with something, you create oxytocin. And so if we're doing that for people that need the happiness, or you call it the happy spot, um, Avacen, he showed me the research, and hopefully he publishes it.
Well, here's the bottom line. I think that what we're going to find is the more research they do, is that you need a daily dose, okay, of oxytocin, which is a daily dose of pleasure. You know, you got to top off your pleasure button. You know, you got to push that enough times that you're going, yeah, I got this, I got this. Because if we don't because that's what it's all about. It's about pleasure. Everything we do, even when people smoke, they think they're doing it for pleasure. It's just that we're just running a wrong program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So what else do you see with the Avacen? So really everything is about immunity, though. I mean, so it affects everything from A to Z. I mean, you increase oxygen level, you increase microcirculation. That means you increase detoxification, and that means that you're going to increase the mitochondrial output of ATP, right?
Yeah, and the other really important thing is that when people become ill, or they get or are ill, or they have chronic situations, most of them have a low core body temperature. I don't want to have people underestimate the value that we provide by taking low body temperature, let's say 97 degrees Fahrenheit here, and getting the body back up to normothermia. And at normothermia, all the enzymes and the hormones work, and that's another aspect of the body healing itself. That's really important. That's what I believed for years. For the first 4 years of I was in the Avacen business, that's what I was doing. That's why we were getting all of these benefits. But when I found out we were infusing heat into the body past 98.6, let's say, it's called normothermia, that's where the real benefits were coming. But there's still a lot of benefits you get just because we're warming the body and we're taking the body up to normothermia, so you don't have denatured enzymes and hormones and things of that sort. So, I mean, that's a value. Where I see the company going is right now we're just primarily in the United States, and just getting into Canada. There's a whole big world out there that needs us, and so we have to take it. So we have to keep up, and we have to scale within the next year to maybe take on 2 or 4 more countries.
Isn't it amazing, though? I mean, the reason why I really love this device is because it's just too simple. I mean, okay, so what I want you to do is put your hand in here, and if you fall asleep, who cares? That's it, because it'll release your hand when it's done. And chances are you are going to fall asleep, so just enjoy the ride. Okay, so that's really important.
Yeah, well, that's because I actually developed most of the user interface for my mom, who, she started using the device at 88 years old. She's just turned 96, healthy as can be, and she went through a lot of things, but she was one that couldn't record a TV program, couldn't make the remote work. So I did everything to make it a one button push. And when we first started out, we just had a timer, and it could run. It would just run, I think, till it ran out at 9999 or something, and then it didn't even shut off. I mean, and finally we realized that we used to have where you had to turn it by hand to create the vacuum. And then we put in where it automatically closed it, and then we got smart and put in where it automatically released it. And then we learned that if we revved up the motor at the end for the last 15 seconds, you would know that it was done, so it would wake you up if you're asleep. And then we put in different tones for people who had hearing problems, so older people would have lower tones so you could hear the beeps. There's so much that we've learned over the last 5 or 6 years that has it to where it is right now. Like I said, there's over 4,000 computer instructions in this device. It's a huge computer, actually. It's probably it's smarter than the payroll. I started out in the information technologies business, and we used to have a computer at J.C. Penney's to run the whole company, and it doesn't have as many firmware, doesn't have as many instructions as we have in this little device. It's a pretty smart device, and we have five. We just got our fourth U.S. patent or fifth U.S. patent for a game mode. It's the only Class 2 medical device certified by the FDA that has a game mode in it. And the reason we have a game mode in it, and I'm just talking about all the different smart aspects of the device that we learn, is for people that have anxiety, they have ADHD, they can't focus, and after 2 minutes, those people can't use the machine. But so we have them go on game mode, and they play a game. It keeps track of how well you keep the hand pad indicator in the center of the device. It gives you a previous high score. It gives you cute little messages for kids, like my grandma could have done better if they don't do it right. And it allows practitioners to set somebody in the corner, use the machine, and come back and see how effectively they used it. So if they have a high score, you know they were using it effectively. And if they have a low score, then you know that they need some training on using the device by themselves. So you can have multiple patients using it without any supervision.
Beautiful. I'd like to circle back around if I could, though. So, and I think this is really important for people on a side note, is that we know that when microcirculation is restored to any tissue, then it is not going to get preyed on by any type of unfriendly bacteria, viruses, worms, things of that nature. So the higher the vibration, the bigger, the more circulation, microcirculation you restore, then you get rid of the tissue disintegration. Otherwise, all that inflammation. And I think you can say that I'm correct about this. Is that the virus can't get a foothold unless microcirculation is also damaged.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they don't live well within oxygen or heat, for that matter.
Yeah, and this has both.
Right.
Very good. What will we see in a year from now? What, if anything, might our readers or listeners miss when they first look at the Avacen Medical?
I think what they'll see is their normal internal medicine doctor will be prescribing or tell them to use the Avacen, which we don't see today. But I mean, we do see it today, but not like it should be. Every doctor should understand what this does and be having their patients do it. We're working with the VA on a very big project right now. If we can get them to pay for the machine for people, we'll see that too. So I hope we'll see reimbursement for veterans, because there's amazing things that we do for traumatic brain injuries, PTS, all kinds of situations where people cannot even get out of bed in the morning. Grown men that have gone through things that you and I will never ever experience, and they are so emotional they can't put their life back together. So we're giving them their life, and so I think you'll see that. I think you'll see more people. Avacen being not a household name, but being a highly recognized name. It isn't now. There's very few people that know about the Avacen. So those are the things that I see in a year. I see some sort of reimbursement by the Veterans Administration. I see more doctors prescribing, more Western doctors prescribing the Avacen, more hospitals using the Avacen, and just more awareness of the value, and more research being put out there by Avacen.
Wonderful. So what is also the Avacen E-Series? Can you tell us?
Yeah. Okay. So in the U.S., we used our FDA indications for use, and to try to, as a strategy to because our device is so non-invasive, it is so safe. Some of the people that we were using for consultants who actually got our approval in the EU said, you guys, this is more of a wellness device, and you don't need to, and you have so many indications. If you wanted to get it cleared in let's say Japan, and we wanted to tell people about everything it did, it would take and they weren't exaggerating, 20 years to get it cleared for all those indications. Why don't you market this as a wellness device? And as a wellness device, um, it will go through, it will get accepted for use much easier instead of saying it's a medical device. And so last April, we changed our strategies for export because we didn't want to give up our FDA clearance because that's very important to people knowing that there's efficacy and there's safety involved in it, and that we've got the gold seal on it. But so what we started doing and what we're doing is uh, we developed the E device, and E actually stands for export. So every place we export out of the United States is an E device now, and our indications for use are such that it's a then we can use things like longevity, which is an issue for the FDA and an issue for some governments, and we can use things like wellness and protecting the immune system. And so we can tell people about that without getting in trouble. So that's what the E device is. It's the same device. Okay, so we always tell people, well, if like for fibromyalgia, we're not cleared in the U.S., but we are in the EU. If you want to use it for fibromyalgia, and you can't do this anymore, you just get on a plane, go over to England, and it'll work for fibromyalgia. And I said, well, oh, okay. But anyway, so that's what the E device is. It's just a export only device.